Hi there. If you've ever wanted to learn how to make a sound effect pack from scratch, this is going to be the video for you. I actually had a request come in from one of you, and you asked, can you do a tutorial on how to make a sound pack for beginners? So that is exactly what we're going to do today. I'm actually going to take a document that I have on my computer, my sound pack creation plan, and this is the actual process that I take and follow step by step for creating a sound pack whenever I'm creating one from scratch. So that's actually what we're going to talk about and share in this video. So with that said, if at any point in the video, if you want to go deeper and go more into detail about how to create sound packs and sell sound effects online and earn passive income, I actually created a whole workshop about it, and I'll make sure to put a link below. But basically in the workshop, I talk about exactly how I earn $200 to $500 plus a month selling sound effects online. So if you want to see more about that, make sure to check the link in the descriptions. All right, with that said, let's start off with number one here, and this is going to be to define your target audience. Now, this is important because it's going to dictate the kind of sound effects that you're going to create, and also how you're going to package them and deliver them. So for example, there's kind of three different categories that I'd normally like to separate them in. One is going to be like game developers. So this could be like solo game developers or indie game developers. Number two is going to be for sound designers. And number three is going to be for like video editors or videographers or just independent video creators. And the reason I split it up like that is because game sounds are going to be different than video sounds, which is going to be different than what sounds that probably sound designers want. So for game developers, usually 48K 24-bit is like good enough for them. Like they don't necessarily need more. They're probably not going to be designing and using the sound effects that you're going to deliver for them. Usually they want to have that drag and drop ready. So those are the kind of sounds that I normally aim to create when I sell to them. For sound designers, usually they'll want to have way higher quality sounds. So normally 96K 32-bit or 24-bit and even higher if possible. So usually sound designers will want to have the most flexibility possible. And in terms of like how you actually deliver your sound effects, for example, let's say you're making a sound pack that is whooshes and impacts. Let's say you have like a whoosh impact sound. Well, for sound designers, a lot of them will want to have those, not only the design file that you might have designed, so the whooshed into the impact, but they'll also want to have those two split and separate so that they can actually grab those individually and then start designing them the way that they might want to design it for themselves. So sound designers usually want to have a lot more flexibility in their workflow. So usually higher sample rate, higher bit rate, and then more in terms of like construction sounds that they can work with. I don't have much experience with video editors, but I think they're kind of similar into game devs in that they are more into drag and drop style of sound effects without much tweaking involved. I'm not too sure about the sample rate that's industry standard for them, but that is another thing that you can take into consideration here. All right, number two is to choose a theme or a category for your sound pack. So usually I try to think of this in two different ways. One is that you can take a theme which might be like a game theme. So for example, you might create all the sound effects that somebody might need for a specific type of game. So for example, a platformer game, maybe you have all the sounds for that platformer game. Maybe you have like a first-person shooter game. Maybe you have all the sounds that a player or a game developer might need for that first-person shooter game. So that's one way you could approach it. That could be a category of sound pack that you could have. Another one is to have a sound effect category. So for example, you're going to create all the sound effects around, let's say, sci-fi weapons. So you can have like a sci-fi weapon sound pack, and it's all going to be sci-fi weapon sounds. Another one could be like, for example, footsteps, and it's just a sound pack of only footsteps, and that's all that you're going to create. So choosing between the two is going to help you to kind of focus your energy and your sound pack into one direction, and it's going to make it more valuable that way. All right, so once you have the theme of your sound pack chosen, the next thing I would do is to start building out my folder structure of my sound pack. So this is going to be, for example, the actual folder structure that the person would receive once they purchase the sound pack. So you would start off with, at the very top, you'd have your sound pack title, the name of your sound pack. After that, you would have the different categories that you would have inside your sound pack. So again, if you're going with whooshes, maybe you have like designed whooshes, designed impacts, designed whoosh impacts, and then maybe you have your construction kits, which is just like whooshes, impacts, and maybe whoosh impacts again. So, or just different recorded elements that you have that you used for the sound pack. So these might be like the different categories, folders that you would have in there, right? So it's just to have a basic structure outline so that you know and you are focused when you start to design your sounds. You know exactly what kind of sounds you need and where to put them once you have them designed. All right, number four is to actually start designing your sound effects. So this is kind of the fun, creative part of creating your sound pack. This is when you're going to go out and record sounds. You're going to edit them. You're going to start designing them and put everything together and then start putting them in that folder structure that we had just talked about in number three. Just a word of warning here, make sure you don't use any third party sound libraries, especially if you do not have, and then for most of them, you don't have the copyright to be able to use them in your own sound effects. So make sure that everything that you use that you're going to be selling, they're all your own sounds and your own recorded material, nothing that comes from somebody else, because you do not have the copyright to that. Also, make sure that whatever synths, for example, that you're using, if you're using any synth, that you have the license and that they let you be able to sell the sound effects that you create with that synth. Most of them are fine. I think the only one I know of that isn't is Omnisphere by Spectrasonics, but I think pretty much every other synth that's out there should not be an issue, but just be aware of that. All right, number 5 now is to start to rename all of our sound effects. So at this point, we should have our folder, our sound pack folder, filled with all the sounds, all our finalized sounds from our sound pack. Now what I like to do is actually go back and start to rename everything. So, and the way I like to do that is using the UCS naming convention. And I like to do that inside of Reaper using the UCS renaming tool. It's just a great Reaper script that you can use that automatically renames all of the sound effects that you have and just makes sure that they are UCS compatible, and it's just really quick and really easy. So that's the way that I like to do it. If you want to do it some other way and you want to do it manually, whatever, of course you could do it that way. But yeah, now is just the time where I start to rename all my sound effects. All right, number 6 now is to start to add metadata. And metadata is any information that is relevant to the sound file. So for your sound effect in the sound file, you'll have your sound effect name. That's a metadata. You might have a description. That's also metadata. You might have the sample rate that is baked into like the file. That's also metadata. So you can have a whole bunch of different kinds of metadata. There's like keywords. You can add notes. You can add URLs. You can have a whole bunch of different things. And the way that I like to do this is using a program called SoundMiner. That is it's a paid program. It's a industry standard program software that you can use, that most sound designers use to be able to add metadata. And it's also a library manager. So it kind of does two things at once. And it also can be integrated into your workflow, into like Reaper or whatever DAW you're using. But yeah, SoundMiner does metadata. I've also used Basehead. Basehead is great for that as well. And if you don't want to have to pay, there's a free program that you can also use, which is called Soundly. And it is free to download, but it's quite limited in terms of how you can add metadata, what metadata you can add, and how you can do it like quickly. So stuff like Basehead and SoundMiner, you can do it through Excel sheets and .csv files. So it's like very quick to just kind of type stuff up and then import it into the program, and then it automatically applies it to all the sound effects. I don't think you can do that in Soundly. Hopefully someone correct me if I'm wrong, but it is still something that you can do manually within Soundly if you want to have a free version. All right, so with that done, our sound pack is pretty much ready to go and ready to be sold and uploaded. So actually, before we start to sell and upload, there's one more thing that we're going to do, and it's going to be number 7, to create our promotional material. So there's 3 things that I kind of lump into this category. One is going to be to have a demo track that kind of previews the sound files that are going to be in your sound pack, so people have an idea of what they're buying. They have an idea of the quality of the sound effects, and they know what they're getting into when they buy the sound pack. Another thing that I put in here is the cover art. So I always like to have some sort of cover art for my sound pack. This is kind of like the visual representation of your sound pack. Without that, there's no kind of like visual with it. So it's nice to have something. So cover art. And then lastly, I like to create an asset list. So this is a full list of all the sound effects with all the metadata that they're going to get if they purchase the sound pack. So that way they can just see everything that's included, all the metadata. So if they ever want to know like certain search terms that they can look up, everything's just there, and they just know how many sound effects, what they look like, how they're going to be organized, categorized, etc. Everything's going to be there. So I like to include those 3 as I prepare to upload before I upload my sound pack. All right, and number 8, now we are ready to upload our sound pack to our desired platform. So there's a lot of different platforms on the internet that you can find. Some that I like to upload to is Unreal Engine, Unity Engine, and Pond 5, especially for game sounds. Those are great. Pond 5 is not so much for game sounds, but you can include them in there. There's also other ones like asoundeffect.com is very popular for sound designers. Audio Jungle is also another one that's kind of similar to Pond 5. There's also stuff like Epic Stock Media and Sonus.com. So anyways, there's a whole bunch out there. And and they're all kind of targeting a different section of the market. So different people. So for example, asoundeffect usually is like kind of sound designers and audio designers and stuff like that, audio editors. Stuff like Pond 5 is usually more for independent kind of creators. So it just depends who you're going for, who you're targeting. That should influence and could influence like where you want to upload your sound pack. All right, so with that said, if you followed all the steps in this video now, you should have a sound pack that is complete and uploaded and available online for people to buy. So if you want to go deeper into anything that we talked in here in this video, I actually created a whole workshop about how I earn $200 to $500 plus a month online selling just sound effects. So if you want to see that, check the link in the description below. And if you want to see another video, a full tutorial on how to get started selling sound effects on pond5.com, I actually made a whole video about that. So I'll make sure to put it in the link above here, and also a link in the description. So make sure to check it out. So that's it for now. Thanks so much for watching all the way through to the end. If you have any questions, of course, leave it down below. I always do my best to answer, and I'll see you in the next video.